Welcome to a very special episode of Extra Time with Girls on the Ball. It is a busy international week with some important games across the board, none more so than Northern Ireland's double-header playoff with Montenegro as they look to retain their League B spot ahead of the European qualifiers. I caught up with manager Tanya Oxtoby to preview the week, see how she is settling into a new role and her experience in the game. Hi Tanya, it's great to have you on Extra Time with Girls on the Ball. Can you just tell us about your up-and-coming double-header with Northern Ireland and Montenegro?
Yeah, I can. It's exciting. I think a playoff, and all the girls are really looking forward to it. Really want to get back together. Obviously, after the last window, and look, we've had a lot of time to prep, which is nice. It's a luxury since I took the job. So looking forward to it. We're going to be based in Leicester, sort of preparing for the away game, and then obviously heading back to Belfast for the second leg. And look, Montenegro are a great team, and they're going to cause some problems. They've got some really creative players that can hurt you. So we need to make sure that we are, controlling the game with the ball. That's probably going to be the main message to the group.
It's been kind of, I guess, a baptism of fire for you coming in with so many competitive fixtures. And then I guess now this is absolutely crucial that you do stay in League B ahead of Euro 2025 qualification. So how have you managed that kind of transition, I guess?
Yeah, I'll be honest, it's been that's probably a polite way to put it, baptism of fire. I remember my first game like at the Aviva, and I'd only had 3 days with the girls, so I was still kind of like learning names and who they like were as people. And 68,000 against the Republic was just one of those real surreal moments. Obviously not at the time, but when I reflected on it, I was just like, you're a nutter, like, if you think that this is a good idea. And obviously, like, we had no comms. Our comms had gone down, so I had no visuals. I had no communication from upstairs either. So I was just kind of stood on the sideline going, okay, we'll just flow with this. So things will only go up from there, really. But it's been a crazy kind of 5 or 6 months, and I wouldn't want it any other way. I think they're a great group of players and staff. We've got a lot of work to do, but essentially, I would love a friendly. That would be a nice start to sort of work on some things. But I'm in a unique position, I suppose, with this squad where our home-based players at the moment, they're actually off-season. So I get probably more contact time, and our staff get more contact time with them than maybe other international managers would. So that's a positive and a bonus. But it's definitely been a very busy 5 or 6 months, and I feel like it's only going to get more insane probably in the next six windows.
I guess that's probably because the Nations League is one thing, and you want to be competitive in that, but it's about that qualification. And I guess with a team that made history that Euro 2022, they may be kind of dropped off a little bit in terms of where they were aiming to be. So it's trying to build them back up to that point again.
It is. Look, my first kind of remit, if you like, in my own mind was to sort of evaluate where the group was at, and that's sort of on and off the pitch. So looking at, when I talk about a high-performing environment, I think about evaluate, I think about processes, and I think about people. So for me, that first 3 windows across the Nations League was just getting a real grip of evaluating where we're at. And like I said, we've got some work to do 100%, because we want to make sure that we're not just qualifying for major tournaments, but then when we get there, we're competing. And I think speaking to a lot of the players, that's probably the piece for them where, yes, they went to the Euros. It was an amazing experience, but they felt like they wanted more from that. Which is great. They're hungry for more. So it's trying to slowly embed some of those processes in place, make sure we've got the right people in terms of players and staff within the group. Because essentially for us, like, the Euros is where we want to be as the first point of call. But we don't just want to make up the numbers when we get there. We want to be competing. And for us, closing that performance gap is really, really important to do that.
It's about getting those foundations right in place, and things don't happen overnight. I think as humans, we all want them to happen straight away, but it's just making sure you've got the right processes.
It is. And look, I'm not disillusioned to think that we're not in a performance-based business, but I think it's probably going to be, a journey for us to get to where we want to be. And, that includes obviously like our 17s and our 19s as well. I was across last week and got to see both of those groups, and get a grip with those players. And we've got some fantastic young players coming through. So it's trying to get the right mix at the right time, with the experienced players that we have, but also the talented young players we've got coming through. And it's a process and it takes a little bit of time to get there. So look, we're focused obviously on the playoff. That's the first step. But in the background, we're working really, really hard to make sure that come the first sort of qualifying, set of games, that we're in a good position, because we've been building towards that sort of for the last probably 6 months.
For sure. You've got, as we mentioned earlier, this double header with Montenegro. How does planning for a camp like this take place? As you say, you're in Leicester. So what kind of goes behind that decision to sort of have camps wherever?
Yeah, look, I think more logistical for us. We had a real torrid time trying to get to Albania for the last game, and I think it was definitely a factor in some of the fatigue that set in the second game against the Republic. I thought we competed for 30, 35 minutes, but we really struggled. And there's other factors that go with that, but I think the travel didn't help. So, the flights and the ability to access Montenegro from like a London-based airport was one of the reasons, and also the facilities. So to make sure that we had everything that we needed all in one place. And the third factor for me, I want to change it up. I don't want the players to be comfortable. I want them to, we're starting the camp in Leicester. Like, that's not something we've done before. So, constantly, I guess, taking them out of their comfort zone a little bit, changing things up a little bit, challenging the staff. Like, logistically, it's a challenge now. We've got to make sure that we get everything right. And yeah, I guess the facilities is obviously the bonus, in terms of like Leicester's training facility has everything that we need to make sure that we're prepared and ready for that first game, especially being away from home.
For sure. And I guess in terms of squad selection, you made your selection the other day. But I guess it's that balancing of like the pro against the semi-pro amateur kind of players, and trying to bring them all together, but while in a high performance environment, as you say. It must be quite a challenge.
Yeah, it is. It's trying to get the composition of the squad right. So, and every sort of window is going to be a bit different depending on who we play. Like, we're lucky in this window, and obviously the Hungary window where we played the same opposition for both games. So that helps. But I think the composition of the squad then is something that comes into that if you're playing two completely different teams, i.e. the last window we played Albania and then we played the Republic, and they pose very, very different conundrums as a group. So it's trying to get the balance right with your selection on that. And there's an element, of obviously the form that the players are in, and are they performing for their club? Are they being selected for their club? And sometimes those factors are out of their control. They're fit and available, but they're not picked as such. So there's factors along that line, but there's also then, like I said, we've got the players that are currently sort of in pre-season with their clubs in Northern Ireland. So, we were able to play a game there last weekend, which was really, really valuable before selection to see where everyone was at. So it's trying to think outside the box and give everybody a really equal playing field to, I guess, put their hand up for selection, and also be able to think about what are we actually going to need against Montenegro? What's the key components for us from a strategy point of view? And the players will tell you I'm never happy. So I like to make sure that I've got flexibility in terms of the way that we're going to play within our style of play. So that flexibility in selection and that ability to play a number of different positions is important, so that we don't have to change and make substitutions. We can just tweak things on the go as we need to.
And as you say, Montenegro pose a particular problems in terms of the way that they play. I mean, I've seen them play a couple of times, and they might be more free-flowing these days, but they were certainly quite defensive and compact and solid when we saw them play. So it's just about learning how to break those down.
Yeah, any tips for us will be really welcome. Look, we watched them play Denmark, and obviously they were quite, as you said, quite rigid and structured, and looked to obviously counter. And then we've watched a couple of games maybe against opposition that are more matched to where they're at, and they are a little bit more free flowing, still probably transitional, but from our point of view, they've definitely got players that can hurt us. They're very creative. So, they want to go forward straight away. That's their mindset. It's not, oh, we'll try and build through the thirds. It's how do we get forward, whether that's a dribble and a carry or whether that's, playing straight in behind. So we need to make sure that we're sort of aware of that in terms of our rest defence and make sure that we're balanced. But my biggest challenge to the group is to control the game with the ball and make sure that we're really aggressive in our counter press so that they can't actually get their head up and start to look to hurt us going forward. So that's definitely kind of the loose game plan. All of that probably go out the window after 5 minutes. That's football. So, but yeah, look, they've got players that are very creative and that can hurt you, and that they will fancy themselves. Like, they've done really well in their group, and they're going to be a good challenge for us.
I guess it's really valuable as well to be playing those kind of opposition. I know everyone probably looks at maybe the showcase games at times, but actually learning how to win against teams that are hard to beat at times and, do play on the transition, that's really important as well.
It is, and it's about being patient with the ball and trying to exploit the spaces and disconnect, I suppose, their structures a little bit. And it's not, from our point of view, that's something that as a group we've spoken a lot about. That we're quite keen and eager to go forward. We're not probably as comfortable yet in terms of in possession and controlling a game with the ball, which is the challenge for the group now. It's and I thought they did that exceptionally well against Albania away. Just the patterns of play and what we were trying to do. So it's now taking that up and again to another level, and making sure that we can do that at the right times in the right areas. And when that's not working, not being frustrated and then thinking about, okay, well, that particular space is not there for us to exploit, but there's got to be space somewhere. So how do we disconnect and draw them out a little bit and look to occupy the areas that are going to, serve us and obviously hurt them?
I guess another difference from domestic management to international management is probably your more overarching role within, I guess, the Irish FA and looking at the infrastructure within country as well as preparing for camps and stuff. How have you found that side of the job, I guess, because that's kind of new?
It is new. It's new in this role, and it's probably not something I've done for a while. I did a lot of that when I was in Australia. I did a lot of the, I suppose, like the infrastructure and the more operational side of it, and strategic side of it when I was there and I was still playing. So I have that kind of experience in my back pocket, but it's not probably something that I've really had to apply as such. Probably did a little bit more at Bristol as well, just because of the nature of the role. But yeah, obviously when I was at Chelsea, that was not my job, and like happily kind of stood back from that. But I enjoy it. I think for me, it's about the whole pathway, and it's about, when I was talking to Angela and Aaron about this job, it was, how do we influence and impact the game in Northern Ireland for females? That was the brief, and I think I was so excited by that. It's not just about what we do on the pitch. It's about how we're going to make sure that, we look after our more senior players that are transitioning. Where, how do we support that transition so that we don't lose them from the game? How do we make sure that we get, fantastic numbers playing at grassroots level? Do they have a pathway? Can they see that actually, if you're doing well, you're going to start to come through and people have got eyes on you? How do we develop a high performing environment for every, female that's kind of in that elite pathway? So all of that is what excites me, because it's essentially the foundation that then means we can go on and be successful.
Yeah. And I guess it's about being creative without that as well, because you naturally probably don't have the resources of, say, in England or, in Australia, but it's trying to figure out ways of stretching those resources to be able to make that successful.
It is. And that's where we've got such great people, and that's, I always said that whatever job I took next, I wanted to be aligned and I wanted to make sure that there was good people. And, this role has that. And, everyone over in Northern Ireland is going above and beyond to help grow the women's game. And they're so passionate about it. And they've all come through it, they've all been a part of it in some way. So it's trying to sort of lean on those expertise and that knowledge. It's then thinking about how can we resource this? Because again, as you say, like, there's limitations to that in terms of, we can't just go splashing the cash. That's not how it works. But how do we have our biggest bang for our buck with the best people involved? And I think that's really, really important. And I trust them so much. I think they're all fantastic and they're doing a great job. So, I think it will continue to grow. And as I said, I was over last week and I sent them all a message and just said, you guys are fantastic. You're doing amazing work and you make my job easy. Hopefully in 4 years' time, I'll be sat here kind of just relaxing and just enjoying it, the fruits of some of that labour.
Yeah, brilliant. And just about your journey into coaching yourself, because you were a player, what was it that made you want to get into management?
Yeah, craziness, I think, is probably the right word. I fell into it, to be honest. I was playing at Perth Glory and I didn't really think I was a good coach, if I'm honest. But I'd never had a female. I'd never had a female coach. And look, I had a really, really poor experience with a male coach who, you talk about body shaming and things like that. It was really, really difficult period for me. And I just got to the point where I was like, I can't be any worse than that. I play at a high enough level. I've got experience. I understand the game. And I want to be a role model, essentially. I want to be able to give back. So I kind of fell into coaching in that sense and coached a lot of the youth pathway, like youth elite pathway. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I just, and then I thought I want to be better at this rather than just kind of relying on my playing ability and my knowledge from that. I want to be better. So just kind of continued to accrue my coaching credentials as I went, more and more experience in that area. And I think being a female in that area, you've got a massive responsibility to also make sure you're opening the door for other females and encouraging them to come through. So, talking to a lot of the, I guess, more senior players about what roles do you want to play within this? So we had some that were doing sort of like the team manager role and things like that with some of our representative teams. So yeah, I kind of fell into it, but dragged others along as I went. I think from my point of view, I probably didn't ever think I was going to make a career out of it. I never thought it was going to be something that I would do as a full-time job. I'm a psychologist by trade. So my plan was always to finish playing and then I was going to go into a 9-to-5 job and sit at a desk and that was going to be me. And that's because that's what was I only ever saw that was kind of what happened. And I kind of started the sat at the desk 9-to-5 thing and it just didn't work for me and didn't last very long. So continue my journey and I don't know how I got up. I don't know how I ended up here, but here I am.
I kind of know the feeling with that. 9-to-5 never worked. It was just too much. But yeah, no, I think it's because you went into Bristol. I mean, you had a couple of assistant jobs before that. You were at Forest as well, weren't you? You did management at Forest. But then Bristol, probably the real head coach WSL job. What kind of was that like, stepping into that environment in a club that I don't know, I'm very, very fond of personally. So, and the way that they interact within that community. So, how was that experience?
Yeah, look, I fell into that job as well. I was at home in Perth. My brother had actually just passed away and I was kind of back doing some family stuff. And I was in the airport. I remember it so clearly. I was in the airport and my phone rang and it was a number I didn't know. So I answered it and it was someone talking to me about the Bristol job. And I said, look, I don't feel like I'm in a good place to take this role. I'm not experienced enough. I've got no idea what I'm doing. I'm dealing with obviously this stuff over here. I just, I don't think it's a good idea, essentially. And they said, look, use the plane ride to think about it. Obviously 24 hours to kind of sit on the plane and just have it go through your mind is not healthy for anybody. So especially for an overthinker like me, but landed back and they said, look, can you just come and have a conversation with us? And just, if nothing comes of it, then fine. Even on the morning of, I was like, I don't think I'm going to do this. I just don't, there's that imposter syndrome, isn't it? It's that doubt of why me, what do I have that they could possibly want or see in me? So I went down and had a conversation and look, we were super aligned. You talk about what the club means and what it's about. It's about community engagement. It's about youth, developing youth. It's about, being really thinking outside the box and being really resourceful with the, what you've got to work with, and all of that obviously is just, it was my bag. So yeah, driving back up the M4, and I was like, oh, okay, I can see where this is going to go now. Like, this is, I'm going to drop myself right in it here. So took the job. Pre-season started in like 3 days. We had no players signed. It was an absolute mess in that sense. But like, what a great season we had. It was probably one of the most enjoyable experience that first season for me that I'd ever had in football. Super group of players. I think we finished 6th or something like that. Again, sort of just looking back on it, just going, wow, that's mental when you really think about it. But I think from my point of view, the alignment was definitely the piece for me that I wanted to be a part of it. I think after that first season, there was a change in terms of the board. There was a change in the structures, and that alignment wasn't there anymore. And that was, I sort of struggled a lot with that, if I'm honest. And that's probably where I didn't have the skill set at that point in time from a managerial point of view. I was still very young in my journey. Motivating the players, putting together the game plan, the tactical, that was a breeze for me. But the managing up piece was something that I'd never really had to do. So yeah, that second season, the alignment wasn't really there. Obviously, the resources in the game exploded. Everybody kind of, they all went full time. Everybody kind of pumped money into it. We kind of stayed the same. And the third season for me, I just kind of went, yeah, this is difficult now, because everything that you're trying to do, you're sort of arguing and you're fighting and you're trying to push for more for the players, but it just never really got off the ground. And I think from my point of view, obviously I got pregnant at that point. And yeah, I think that really solidified for me that I was probably not in the right place anymore, the way that was handled. So yeah, it's a club I love, and I'm so happy that they are. Again, they've had a change in terms of the way that they're structured, the way that they're. I guess that alignment is back, and they are. Lauren and her team are doing a super job, and I'm so pleased for them that they're back in the WSL. I'm so, I always check for the score. I always have a look to see how they're getting on. I always text, Lauren Dykes, who's one of the coaches who played under me when I was there, and just, yeah, it's such a lovely club, and I just want them to stay up. I want them to keep growing. I think they're amazing for the WSL, and I had a really great time there, and some massive learnings for me, because I think it really highlighted for me the areas that then I needed to go away and sort of develop and get better in. And I'll always be forever, I think, grateful and thankful for that experience.
And it probably prepared you perfectly in a way for a job like Northern Ireland, where you are having to, stretch resources, as we said before, and all of that. And then we went to Scotland for a bit, and then to Chelsea. What was kind of that like, going into that, like, they're the champions of England kind of thing?
Yeah, again, probably quite surreal for me, because I was on maternity leave, and yeah, I got a text saying, like, look, there'd been conversations obviously previously or whatever, and it hadn't been the right time for me to move, because I was committed at Bristol, and as I said, first season I really enjoyed it, and then I really struggled. But look, Emma was fantastic for me during my pregnancy. She was really supportive. She really helped guide me, because she'd obviously been through it before, and I was new to it, and I didn't have a clue what I should be, I suppose, not entitled to, but like the support that I should be offered. And, she was really, really monumental in making sure I got through that period, because it was really, really tough. It was really tough. Middle of COVID, it was really difficult. And then there was a text while I was on maternity leave sort of saying, like, is now a good time? Like, to make the jump. And yeah, I think from my point of view, it was that piece around the Bristol experience, thinking about what is it that I need to do to develop and be better. And part of that was tactically, how do you win games of football? How can you adapt and adjust things? Because with the group that I had, a young group, you had to make sure that you were really succinct with what you were doing at Bristol. So that ability to change and adapt probably wasn't there just yet. And that's not their fault at all, because I thought they were fantastic. But for me, I was like, I need to be somewhere where tactically I'm challenged and I'm learning, because that's probably something I've not really had to do at this level. How do I win? Because they're champions of England, right? So how do I win? And what am I going to bring to the table that is going to make them better? And I think all of those conversations kind of evolved, and from like my perspective, I was like, this is, if I'm going to go in as an assistant, I'm only ever going to do it for Emma, because I know she's going to challenge me, she's going to develop me, but she's also going to support me. At that point I had a 3-month-old. So, I'm thinking to myself, I don't even know my own name at this point. I don't have a clue what's going on, and I'm going into the Champions of England, and I'm expected to just kind of be able to like hit the ground running. And Chelsea is a machine; it stops for nobody. It's that's why they're so successful. So, it came about kind of very quickly, and yeah, from my point of view, it was a massive eye opener, because I kind of went from, my perception of Chelsea, if I'm honest, from the outside was always like, well, they've just got money. And I think that's everybody's perception to some degree, until you're in it and you see how much work goes into it. Every single little detail, every single person in that organisation, the amount of work and time they put into it. It's not just about money at all. It's about preparation. It's about attention to detail. It's all of those things. So, yeah, I think from my point of view, when I kind of went into that role, I was like, whoa, this is like next level. And obviously, coming back, I had a 6-month-old at that point when the season started, and Emma was so supportive. She was like, you tell me what you can and can't do, and we'll work around that. The expectation isn't that you're in every single day all day like you have a baby. So yeah, she sort of slowly transitioned me back in, which was great. And my role obviously was to sort of help support some of the developmental piece within the playing group. I think my psychology background obviously helped as well in terms of the performance side of things. And in return, I obviously learned what high performing is, and like I said, the level of detail that goes into that. So yeah, going from kind of crawling through a skip bin to pull cones out, to like that have been thrown away by like an academy team, and you think, oh, we could keep those, at Bristol and reuse them, to going to, Champions League football was just, yeah, it's probably not now till I'm sort of out of it that I go, wow, that was yes, you've gone from sort of two opposite extremes there, with no rest in between, by the way, and a baby. You're absolutely off your rocker.
Throwing yourself in the deep end. It's the best way at times.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask, like, as you said earlier, when you started coaching, you kind of wanted to bring others along that journey with you. I guess having someone like Emma in the game, who is so concerned about bringing women into the game, and through the develop. She was speaking last week about the coaching pathways and how it's sad that there are so many barriers, I guess, to becoming a coach for a player. And how I think I was speaking to Marion Spacey last week, and she was saying how it's sad that we've got so much talent within the football playing of the sport, but they have a blocker when they want to go into coaching. So I guess, what's your kind of view on that kind of side of the game?
Yeah, I think it's as I said at the start, it's our responsibility, if we're in a position of if we're in a position of leadership, then it's our responsibility to make sure that we are opening doors and for other females. And look, Emma did that for me. There is absolutely no doubt about that, and I'll be forever grateful. She's always been honest with me. She's always said, these are the areas I need you to be better in, but she's also given that level of support and understanding of my situation. And like that's just something that comes naturally to her. That's not something that, like, I don't think it's something that she overly thinks about. It's just a natural thing for her, and part of that, as I said, that responsibility of being in a leadership role as a female. But there's a couple of things for me around this. One is the I guess the financial barrier to being able to, which I know everybody's touched on, but it's one thing to, there is funding available. There is, I get all of that, but there's the barrier around the cost, and also when you kind of pair that up with the experience. So like, I'm going to go and pay 10 grand for my pro license, but how am I going to apply that? Where, like, day to day, why is that valuable to me? Or my A license, or whatever it is. So, it's one thing to be able to go and get like, your accreditations, but you need somewhere to apply that. You need somewhere where you can develop and grow and learn. And like, some of us do it the hard way and do it in the WSL team, like, which is probably not what I'd recommend, but others do it, in academy structures or as assistants within, elite high performing environments. But again, those opportunities I don't feel are enough. So, when you're a female and you're thinking, well, I don't, I've got to pay this much, salaries don't really match up to the amount that you're having to pay. But then also, I don't really have a full-time role where I can go and actually really apply that and sink my teeth in and learn my trade. So there's probably that element of it from my point of view. And then for me, there's also the third piece, which is got so many talented players, that are coming towards the end of their career. It's something I'm really passionate about. We need to be supporting them on that journey. And that support isn't when, they're on their last legs and they're struggling to get into the team. That's a conversation that should be happening, around that sort of like 24, 25 like age, and say like, what is it that you think you might want to do? Like that dual career piece. And some of them might want to coach and some of them might want to go into media. Some might want to do physiotherapy, whatever it is. Some might say, actually, like I saw an interview, I think it was with Leah Williamson this week. She was like, absolutely not for me. Like I'm not, that's not what I want to do, which is absolutely fine. But then it's, and you've got players like that, but what do they want to do? Do they want to do photography? How do we support them, in that and help them upskill themselves so that the transition that happens for players once they finish their career is not such that they're thinking, I don't know what to do now. Because let's be honest, they don't have millions of pounds in the bank from a playing career that they can fall back on. So there's probably those three elements for me. And what I'd also say, like, and I get really passionate about this, but you go on a course and it's not even relevant to the women's game. And that's my other frustration. And, but again, it's not just about complaining about it. Like, what are we doing about it? So, for me, I sat with my pro licensed tutors and I said, this isn't, the Euros was on. And I said, why can't we do the women's Euros as a we were doing tactical tasks. Yeah. Well, can we do some of the games from the women's Euros then? Because every single time you ask us to come in and we're analysing Liverpool or Man City or whoever it is in the men's game, and, guys are quite comfortable to stand up and talk about that because they're living and breathing it every single day. Yes, it's football, but it's also then difficult for us because we're living and breathing it in the women's game. So when you're talking about players and understanding their attributes and all of that sort of thing, we don't have that natural fallback. So yeah, we did a women's Euros task. So it's not just about saying, oh well, it's not that. Like, challenge it, push it, make sure that you're asking for more, and the assessment centres and things like that. Make it relevant to the women's game because a transfer for like 1.6 million, like when obviously when I was going through like doing it, I was like 1.6 million. Like I was at Bristol at the time. I was like, no, I'm not paying. So it's not relative to my experiences, and so therefore I can't bring the best of myself out. So I think it's also from our point of view, like opening doors for others, but also challenging some of the, I guess, the educational pieces that go with some of the qualifications to make them more relevant. And look, people do listen if you but I guess there's a bit of a stigma of I don't want to offend anyone, or just, for me, I'm just like, I just go knocking on the door and say, like, can we do a women's Euros task? That'd be really good. And, and like at the end of the day, like from my point of view, I've got nothing to lose by asking the question. Like the worst they can say is no. So, I think there's also a piece around making it relative and relevant for the women that go on courses so that they feel like they're really getting something out of it for the money that they're having to pay.
I think that's really important, and probably often it's just because they haven't thought about it, rather than they just haven't thought outside the box in that kind of way, or thought of how their students could benefit from different situations. I guess finally going back to this double header, you're at Windsor Park as well to finish it off, which actually I think it's much better to be at home for the second leg. So that must give you. As long as you can keep it tight in that first leg or go home with a win, then you've got every chance.
Yeah, I think when we saw the draw and obviously that we were going to be away first, I think that was a real like positive for us. Do the travel leg first when you're probably like a little bit fresher, and know what you've got to deal with. Obviously, coming back to Windsor Park, sort of like the situation at that point, what you need to do to get through. So yeah, look, I think the decision to play our home games at Windsor is a positive one. I know a lot of people kind of thought to themselves when we played the Republic, they're like, why? But we wanted to know where we were at because, like I said earlier, we don't just want to compete. We want to, get to major tournaments and actually be competitive. So, we needed to see where our baseline was. We obviously very much saw that, but that gives us a really good idea of where we need to improve. And I think going back to Windsor, in a playoff game. The girls are really excited for it, and I back us. I think we're going to be great. I think that pitch really suits us in terms of the spaces that we can look to exploit, and our movement off the ball. So, yeah, I think it's going to be hopefully a positive end to a playoff that will, get us the rewards that we hope for.
It's about having a bit of a home as well, isn't it? And having the players familiar with the surroundings and the facilities and all of that kind of thing, so that when they go in on that Tuesday, they're not, totally new to them.
Yeah, 100%. And look, we talk about a high-performing environment, like facilities is part of that. So, we want teams to come to us when we play at home and go, wow, like this is, really, really decent. They're investing in the women's game. They value the women's game. And I want the players to feel valued. And we don't have unlimited resources. I think everybody knows that. But there are certain things that we can do to make sure that, you walk into Windsor Park, that's our home of football. Like, let's try and make sure that, the girls feel really valued and that they feel a sense of pride when they play there. And they're comfortable playing there. Like, the more we play there, the more comfortable they're going to get. So, yeah, look, I think getting back there for the second game Tuesday night is going to be, hopefully a big crowd and give them a good performance for them to get excited about.
Brilliant. Well, thank you and best of luck. We will be watching from afar, but we'll be keeping a very close eye and wishing you the best of luck.
Thank you very much.